This week, we have a very special guest, a Boston legend, someone you're very familiar with, David. So I'll let you kind of go ahead and give that introduction because I'm really excited about having this guy on.
Yeah, a little different this week, branching out, have a, hockey legend, Boston Bruin legend, Patrice Bergeron. I'm super excited. I've gotten to know him over the last couple of years, and he's a great dude and does so much for the community, which is obviously big in me, important to me. And, I think someone, with his leadership and things like that, I've always, tried to just look at guys, hear them, whatever, if they're talking about something, and just try to learn from everyone you can. And, he was such a great leader for that hockey team for a long time. And a hell of a long career. These hockey guys, man, they play some long careers. It's super impressive because it's such a physical sport at times too. So, it'll be very interesting to, hear him talk a little bit about life as a hockey player and get into some of my favorite topics of hockey, like fighting. And so, looking forward to it. It'll be something a little different, but it'll be cool to see some of the carryovers, in two different sports, but there's some principles that are the same. And I think that's really cool to see, especially, someone who didn't grow up like myself around hockey much. So, I think the one thing to me that I love about hockey players is they don't look like, it's normal for us to see these giant dudes, right? You know what I mean? And like Patrice is obviously in great shape, but if you saw him on the street and you'd just be like, oh, he takes really good care of himself. And I can remember working out. I work out with a bunch of these guys, are used to it. Brian McDonough's EPS and Foxborough. And I remember there was this kid a couple of years ago in a boot, and he was working out. And I'm telling you, this kid was so small, not great muscle definition and all that. And I was talking.
Can I guess who it is?
Sure.
Marshawn?
No. It was this kid named Matty Benners. He was the second overall pick in the NHL draft. I think he was rookie of the year a couple of years ago when he was a rookie. Dude's unreal. And Brian told me that, and I was like, that guy? You're just used to seeing the Dante Hightowers or Nate Solders, Marcus Cannons, these massive men. And these dudes, and another great thing about them, dude, have you ever watched them run? They don't run. They don't even me.
Well, they're on skates all the time.
I know they don't run. They're not and that's going to
condition on skates, all that stuff.
Yeah, they're not great. When I watch them run, they're not great. We do agility ladders and they're so stiff and but then we go out and do single leg bounds or something and they're just boom. Woo.
Yeah.
We do balance drills and they'd be sitting there playing with their sticks. They are really unbelievable athletes, and it is really cool that they're doing that all on ice and skates versus, you start walking at 1 year old and you do it your whole life. It makes the sport so interesting because there's everything else is on your feet and you're running and you're kind of call it natural things, and so it'll be cool to hear about that and just talk to him and pick his brain a little bit.
Yep. Can't wait.
What's up, guys? Got a special guest this week. Excited to have him, something a little different for us. Two football guys, and we got a hockey legend and Boston legend here, Patrice Bergeron. Patrice, thanks for doing this, man. I think this will be super cool. We talk a lot about football, obviously, and we've talked before kind of some of the big differences, but obviously you had such a great career here and everything. So we're super excited to kind of hear some of the differences, some of your stories, and get into it here.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be on, guys. Thank you for the invite.
Perfect. So, I guess my first question, when you came, because I think it's so different, NFL, you go to college for at least 3 years. So you get a little bit under your belt, growth. You're not really grown up, but, you come into the league, 22, and now guys are coming in with the transfer portal and guys are going 6 years, sometimes in college, 5-6 years, they're 24 years old. That was a little different story than you. I think I was 22, 23 when I got into the league, and you came in at what, 18?
18,
I mean,
yeah.
that's a kid. I mean, and I've heard, a lot of different hockey guys and just met a lot of you guys, from being here, working out with some of the Bruins guys and other guys around the league. I can't even wrap my head around being 18 years old playing professional sports, and you can't even buy a beer yet. And, you're making all this money. And I was watching the Jets game last night. Their running back's 20 years old, making all this money. You can't even go buy a beer. So talk a little bit about that and like that adjustment. Did you think it was a big adjustment, or were you able just to kind of come in and start, finding your groove?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think, obviously, it was a big adjustment for me. I came in from Canada, but the French-speaking part of Canada, so English was obviously a second language to me. So it was still very raw back then, and came into the United States, a new country, new language. 18 years old, as you mentioned, so still very young, and try to wrap your head around just opening up a bank account or getting a car, whatever that is. I just needed help with that, so that was definitely a big adjustment. I was lucky enough to have a lot of help, a lot of veterans on the team to help me and to take me under their wings, if you will. A couple French Canadians actually, so which was a good familiarity for me to be able to speak French with them and learn the ropes. But also I think you're right. Back home you play junior hockey, and then you get drafted around 17, 18. And usually the normal route would be to play a little longer in juniors and then eventually, moving up to the pros. But you're right. It is different than, going to the college and getting out of there by 22, 23, as you said, and feel like you're a little bit more mature and more grown and know a little bit more about, the outside world when you're 18. So it was a big adjustment for sure. But again, I think I was lucky enough to have a lot of help along the way, and I think the Bruins did a good job of surrounding me with, as I said, veteran leadership to make sure I wasn't losing my ways.
Yeah, I think, and I guess did you know much about Boston and really the sports in general? Because I was from Georgia, which is sometimes can seem like a different country than here. But, I just had no idea. I can remember when, I was decided to come here, I got off the phone and I was like, all right, well, I'm going to do it. And I was like, Dad, I don't know if I can live in Boston. And he's like, oh, don't worry. You're not going to Boston. You're going to Foxborough. You're going to be just fine, which I had no idea. I just didn't know anything about the area. I didn't know much about, I knew Boston was a great sports town. Obviously the Patriots were coming off a Super Bowl. Still just a great franchise, but I don't know. I just had no idea about like how great the city was and how much I would fall in love with it. And now 10 years later, calling this home, and obviously you still live here, still very entrenched in the community and things. And I was scared. I had no idea. I didn't know I'd be going to Bruins games, knowing a bunch of you guys, loving the sport of hockey. We had the Thrashers in Atlanta for a little while. And as a little kid, I just went there because they could fight, which is something I want to get into here in a minute. But, I just had no idea. And like even going to the Celtics games, the Red Sox, we've been to pretty much every finals there are as a fan to watch, which is, something I never thought we would do. And it's been super cool just to be a part of this city and the traditions and everything. So, did you know what you were getting into going to Boston and what it was like?
Yeah, no, not at all, to be honest with you. I think for me, especially if I take you back to when I was 17, going to the NHL draft, I didn't really care, who was going to pick me. I just wanted to get drafted and getting an opportunity. But once it was the Bruins, so I'm from Quebec. There's obviously like the big rival. There used to be a team in Quebec City, the Nordiques. Now they're gone. They're the Avalanche now in Colorado. But there's also still the Montreal Canadiens that are still very much ingrained in the culture back home. And the biggest rivals are the Boston Bruins. So that was, the first thing that a lot of people have said is, oh my God, you're going into like enemy territory and all that. And so I didn't know what I was getting myself into, to be honest with you. For myself, like I come from a very small town, so changing country, going to a bigger city, not knowing really what to expect was definitely scary at first. But I think same as you, I didn't realize how much sports meant to Bostonians and people from around New England, and how much they support their team. And it's been pretty amazing, to experience that for the last 20 plus years. And as you said, now it is my home. And, my wife is also French Canadian. She's also from back home, and we both love it. We don't want to, leave. The kids obviously now, they have their friends.
Yeah, you got older kids, so you kind of get entrenched. Me and Brian have talked about that. With his kids, and my oldest is only 3, so we're just we got plenty of time. But we do love it, and it's just so interesting. It's such a great city. It's something that I've been so fortunate to be a part of. I know us 3 all probably feel the same.
Yeah, I was going to hit on that too, because same as you, Patrice, you played 19 years. I played 15 years. You were always in Boston. And I just wanted to, I kind of traveled around the country playing for a lot of different teams. And the one thing that always struck me, you just hit on it about this is a sports town. They love their sports. And what's cool for us professional athletes, like, you didn't get to have a college experience because you just talked about you went right to the pros. Yeah. But David and I, when you go to a college, like, you're kind of integrated with the basketball team, the hockey team, and the guys at Michigan State. They're hockey guys. They threw the most insane parties because a lot of them were old enough to buy the beer. They'd have kegs. They would go. It would just be ragers because they were all team. So much. Yeah, I didn't think Georgia had a hockey team.
We have club hockey. We have club hockey.
Yeah, our Michigan State team, they were pretty good. They won a national championship when I was there. But bringing it back to Boston kind of is such a sports town, and everybody supports all the other teams. Like, we get to meet you guys. You guys come to our games. We go to your games. I know when you guys were in the Stanley Cup playoffs, we get our Boston Bruins hats on and we run out to practice. And same with the Celtics and the Red Sox. Like, I think that's so unique because I've played in a lot of different towns and there's some crossover, but here I think maybe because there's so much success amongst all the different programs, we're all rooting for each other. And I remember going back to honestly, my first NHL games were in that 2011 season. You guys were the Stanley Cup Finals. And because of, I'm playing for the Patriots and a few other guys, we get tickets. And it was one of the most, if not most electric sporting events I ever went to. And I became a hockey fan right then and there because it was such a great atmosphere. You guys win the Stanley Cup, but just what you kind of got from that coming here. You mentioned Boston, the sports town, but kind of getting to view the other sports too, because between you guys, the Patriots, Celtics, Red Sox, they've all won some championships during your career. How cool was that for you?
Oh my God, it was amazing. I came in, when obviously the curse of the Red Sox, the Yankees, and then came back in that series, and then eventually winning the World Series, and then obviously the Pats winning so many championships along the way. I became a fan right away. And you could tell also so I played my first couple of years. There's a lot of guys from around the area, around New England, and right away they would put the Sox game on the Pats and, follow along the sports. And then I kind of, I just wanted to do the same. I just kind of fell in love with the passion of each sport. And as you mentioned also, along the way, you're able to meet some of the guys and getting a closer look into their routine and what how they handle, the life of being a professional athlete and schedules. So it was pretty cool to be a part of that. And to me, I was always rooting for right away for the teams, the Celtics, Pats, the Red Sox. And it's been a pretty cool experience for myself to, obviously we used to always do a Super Bowl party and it seemed like the Pats were always in it, to make it even more special. So and then, I remember meeting some of you guys after you guys won some championships, coming to Bruins games and celebrating with you guys a little bit. Same thing. We went to Foxborough and did the same thing. So I think the teams are doing a great job of mixing and making sure there's support on every which way, and everyone is there for each and every team when it's playoff time. And it's pretty cool to feel that love and that support.
Now, did you have to learn about football, or did you have a good idea?
I did. I still don't know much about football, I'll be honest with you guys. But yeah, I had to learn a lot. I mean, I think I've asked a lot of dumb questions along the way over the years.
Don't worry.
But,
you should hear me in the stand sometimes.
Yeah, I don't worry. I had to learn about hockey too, the offsides, all that, the icing and all that.
Icing
Every sport has its own unique
tripped me up a
rules.
little bit. That one messed with me for a little while. I could understand the offsides. We got offsides. I can kind of, match that one up. The icing one, I guess it's kind of like a delay of game. Like it's, I don't know. That one tripped me up a little bit, but I think I got a good grasp. The one thing about hockey that I still don't understand, I watch it sometimes, and you're watching these dudes just get blasted, on the boards and stuff. And I guess it's the same in football sometimes, but like, someone that doesn't understand the penalties, like I'm watching these dudes just get annihilated, and then it's okay. And then it's the most ticky-tacky thing sometimes, and it's like, oh, and I'm like, okay, that dude just got, flattened on the glass. His teeth are hanging out, and that's okay. But, this little like elbow or whatever, I don't know, whatever you want to say is like illegal. So I'm sure that you probably still get some of that with football, pass interference and different things like that. But
yes, I feel the same way with football. I feel like it's so physical. I'm like, oh my God, how do these guys do it?
I think it's a little different, and that's kind of something I want to talk about. I think in hockey and it's I think every other sport besides football, is these long schedules. Obviously, baseball is the longest with 162. But, with hockey and, basketball, football, and we've talked about this before, we're preparing so much throughout the week for one game, and we're putting a full week, full day every day for one game and trying to run this one play that we set up and practice, walk through. And you maybe make it look different in the first quarter so you can try to hit one big play in the third quarter, and, we're out on the practice field for, 2 to 3 hours, and all for one moment in a game. And, that was something that was kind of blew my mind talking to some of you guys, like, oh, even your training camp practices aren't long, and like the days aren't super long. And it makes sense because in hockey, there's so much, it's so unpredictable, and it's so chaotic sometimes to me watching, and, I'm sure you guys are setting up plays. So, hey, sorry, 2 German Shepherds. Someone's walking around the house. So, I'm sure you guys don't feel maybe it's as chaotic as it looks sometimes on TV. But, I think that's so interesting, the preparation. You guys can't go out there and practice 2 hours a day because you played a game Monday and got to play a game Wednesday, and then you're on the road. And, so talk a little bit about that, your routine, and kind of some of that like practice, because I know, like you've said, like sometimes you're on the ice 30 minutes, and it's not long.
No, sure. I think it's during the year, there's a lot more run throughs, I guess. That's what you guys call it maybe in football. It's a little bit more like try to get the legs going, talk a bit about system, try to a couple of like shooting drills as we call them. And then, after that, it's just a couple of system and then you get off, and you're playing the next day, or there's a lot of travel involved. There's a lot of games. So like, and you're playing different teams every time. So it's a different system. So it's a different, so I think for us, like there's a little less like set up plays, and it's a bit more okay. Let's just rely on what we know as a team, and what's the system is always pretty much black and white. So we try to make it as black and white as possible, and then from there, it's like you just let your instincts go, right? And then from game to game, even from shift to shift, sometimes you just create, and you don't even you're trying to read off each other, but there's not much structure to it all the time. There's like the basic system of how you want to play the game, and what you're going to try to defend or try to counter against whoever you're playing. But that's what amazes me with football, actually, with the playbooks. There's so much to remember in every play. When the quarterback makes a call, like you need to know where you're going. And I'm like, oh my God, I'd be so confused. Like for me, it's like I wouldn't be able to do that. I just feel like I'm so impressed. Like, how do you remember all of these?
Well, that's, that's why I do think, we do need all that time, and you need, you need 4 hours of meetings. You need a 35-minute walkthrough. You need a 2.5-hour practice. You need meetings after practice to correct, all that stuff. And, I think football, there is a lot of, you were kind of talking about instincts, right? Like you can't be a robot. Like if the line on the paper says, hey, and I know this is a big thing with receivers and quarterbacks. And, like if the line on the paper says, hey, 5 yards, break in, like, well, maybe that might change a little bit depending on what they're doing, and having those instincts as a player, if the defensive line is doing something like as an O-lineman, I know we said we were doing this, but it will change. And I think that instinct in sports obviously is different in each sport. Just because I have good football instincts don't mean I know what's going to go on in hockey. And I actually talked to a hockey scout one time. And I was like, how do you scout guys? Like, what are you looking for? And they actually said like instincts and puck, like movement and predictability of where the puck is going to be and being in the right spots. So I think that all does carry over, in sports. You can have all the, you can be 6'6" and run super fast and do it. But if you're not a football player or a hockey player or whatever it may be, like you don't have those instincts, all that other stuff really doesn't matter, and that is the one thing.
No, I think anticipation, football and hockey is so important, be able to read plays and, be in the right spot at the right time. Right. So I think hockey is a lot of that. For us, it'd be like, we have a certain system defensively in the neutral zone on the forecheck, and obviously the special teams like penalty kill and power play. But other than that, like it's just like let's just go and play and then read what's in front of you. And over time, like as you said, you just use your instincts and you create chemistry with your line mates. We're only playing with two wingers. Obviously, there's a different set of pairing of defensemen, but usually you're playing with the same wingers. Then that's when you're creating plays often, but it's always like talking, communicating. And I feel like I'm guessing football is the same thing, and communicating, anticipating plays, and a lot of it is reacting to what the other team is giving you. Like you can't, as you said, it can't be rolled.
I think the one thing that's always impressive to me is you guys are playing that sport on skates. We had when we got locked out by the NFL in 2011, we a bunch of us went down to train at Brian McDonough's
EPS and Fox
gym down in, and he's obviously a big, has a lot of hockey guys there. And, so we would work out with him. And then Pat Chung had the crazy idea. He's like, hey, we should go out and play hockey. And so a bunch of us laced up skates and we went out there. I bought a helmet. I got the visor. I wanted to look the part. I figured if I looked the part, maybe it would just work out. But I could skate a little bit, but then stop. And I mean, we were wiping out left and right. And I think that's one of the most impressive things is it's really the one sport that you're not on your feet. You guys are on skates. You're having to go full speed, stop, maneuver. And some of the times when I'm watching, I'm looking at, how graceful you guys are out there on skates. And then, I talked to some guys on my son's baseball team. They're big hockey guys. They're like, oh, these guys are skating from when they're 2 years old. That's like running. That's like for you, what you're doing running, that's like them when they're out there skating, that's the equivalent. And so I think that's always one of the most impressive things is how you guys maneuver on the ice at such a high rate of speed, stop, maneuver, all those things, and make it look so, glamorous, really. And it's really impressive. Yeah. Effortless.
Yeah, no, I think it just becomes second nature. Right. And by the way, Patrick, he actually came to practice one time. He practiced with us, Patrick Chung. He was a great guy. He was good. I think
he's one of those guys that he's the most,
he just picks up something.
He took me snowboarding one time and I had never gone and he was pretty good. And he's like, all right, I think you're good. And he takes me to the top of the mountain. He's like, come on, you just figure it out. I'm like, dude, I'm not like this dude is like an incredible athlete. No matter what he does, he's good at. So I'm not surprised by that.
Yeah, when did you start skating?
I was 5. I started skating when I was 4.
So I still got some time. I still got some time with my son.
Yeah, exactly. Has he been on the ice as you were talking about?
No. He, I think it would be fun for him to play hockey because, right, you see all these crazy sports parents, and that's my one goal in life now is not to be one of those parents. And, like in football, if my son was like, oh, my coach is telling me to do this, it would be harder for me to be like, that's wrong. don't do that, but like, I don't want to do that because what your coach tells you is what you should try to do. But like in hockey, you'd be like, yeah, my coach is telling me to do this. I'd be like, great, dude, give it hell. That's awesome, man. But the one thing I do know about youth hockey and hockey in general is the rink times are terrible, because I've been at Brian's gym at 5 a.m. because maybe I have something to do in the off season. I got to try to get it in early. And, all these parents are dropping their kids off, little kids for skate. And I'm like, oh gosh. Or it's like, 8 o'clock at night and you maybe had to work out that night or something, leaving like kids are there skating. I'm like, oh, that's brutal, but I think, it's such a great sport, something I've grown to love. And, I don't know about you, but I know Amazon's releasing this hockey show. Is it Amazon, right, that's doing it? Yeah. And my buddy lives in Nashville. He's become close with Philip Forsberg. So, and I've met him, hung out with him a few times. So I'm looking forward to just seeing that show. And I'm not, when Hard Knocks comes out, or, I think Netflix did the like quarterback and wide receiver show. And I don't really watch them because I'm just, I live it. I know it. And I don't know, it's just not that appealing to me. I do it every day, but I'm super excited, honestly, to watch this hockey show. Just because it's one of those things like I don't know a lot about. Like I said, I've known a lot of you guys and I've gotten a little glimpse of it. But I'm just super excited. Is this something, that, you're looking forward to, or cause there's never, in my opinion, I've never seen a show like this in hockey, and, I obviously grew up watching like the Hard Knocks and stuff. And, but now being in it so much, it's kind of like, all right, when I'm at home, I want to break.
Yeah, no, I think I'm looking forward to it. I think it's gonna be good for the game too. Like see a lot of different sports kind of going that route and promoting the individuals within the game and being able to kind of branch out and brand a little bit more. And I think hockey is kind of missing a little bit of that, where like you don't see, the behind the scenes. We're very like conservative as far as like showing some of that stuff in that footage. And I think it'll be great for fans, to learn a little bit more about how it is and how it works. And I feel the same way. I watched some of those shows where it's the golf, full swings. And
I did watch that one. I enjoyed that one.
You know what I mean? Like it's kind of cool to see how it works for them. What's their schedule like? What, the behind the scenes, all that stuff. So I know that some of the fans are wondering and, kind of looking forward to seeing like what hockey players do on a day to day. And, especially, those guys, those, the, celebrities, if you will, the stars, superstars in the league. And I think it's good for them. I'm looking forward to seeing all of it. And I know that Pasta and Sway kind of did it a little bit, so I'm looking forward to see their part, especially that I know them and I'm good friends with them. So it'll be cool. I think it's much needed for all of us.
Yeah, it's great. I think we were talking about, like, Danny was asking us, like, what kind of sports shows do you like to watch? And I'm like, well, I'll watch the games, but I don't want to watch like fantasy. I really don't want to watch like analytical things because I can do that on my own. But the behind the scenes stuff, especially when it gets to other sports, it's always fun to see, how other guys train. What's their schedule like? We talked about with you guys, like the one thing that I'm always impressed with is hockey's a physical sport. I mean, almost as physical as football. And you guys play a lot of games, multiple games a week. Our guys are just recovering if we play Sunday, Thursday, if you had a tough game, you're just starting to feel back to normal Thursday, Friday morning. You guys, I'm sure, are going through that nonstop. And I think, having these behind the scenes look, you're going to see, I know there was some instances in that quarterback show that they did on Netflix where Kirk Cousins was dealing with hurt ribs, and you see like he's just rolling over in bed, and it's like, oh. And I think people, you see they see us out there on game day, and you see some interviews, but to see the life that, we're also human beings. You have kids, David has, we all, like, you got to be a father, a husband, a athlete, all of these things. And we actually, David and I had breakfast with one of our old trainers. He's working for AC Milan. And he's telling us how, like, they have like this resort where every player has his own room. So in between like practice or meetings, they have like a Four Seasons type hotel room. I'm like, this is just blowing my mind. But you see, through these shows around the world, which also that wanted to bring me back to the question I wanted to ask you. You mentioned being from Canada. I know you won 2 gold medals. Like, what's that like? Because in football, it's kind of the one sport you can't really represent your country. There's no like real international level. I mean, I know they're going to do flag football, so just rule David out now because he's not capable of playing flag football with his position and body. But how cool
I don't
and
know
what does
why
that mean?
needed to be brought up, but thanks, Brian. Appreciate it.
Well, it's just obvious, but I think, obviously when I think of hockey, I think of Canada. And so for you coming from Quebec and representing Canada and winning gold medals, I mean, where does that line up? Because obviously Stanley Cup is the NHL equivalent, but I have to imagine growing up in Canada to win a gold medal for Canada, it has to be like the top tier goal when it comes to hockey.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's definitely like, so like when you grew up, like you're hoping and dreaming of making the NHL. Obviously that's like every kid's dream, but representing your country is obviously something that's always been on your mind. Back home, like even the World Juniors is very much important, I guess. It's something we watch. It's always, the World Juniors is always around Christmas time, and we'd watch, and I grew up kind of like associating Christmas with, we're all watching the World Juniors, watching Team Canada hopefully win, right? So for me, that was my first experience when, I played the World Championship, then I did the World Juniors, and to be able to do that as a 19-year-old kid was pretty special, and it reminded me brought back a lot of memories, and, my family was extremely proud. But, the Olympics it's the greatest sports event in the world, right? That's the one thing we all talk about and that people watch, and it's obviously worldwide. So that was special just to be at the Village. We talk about, seeing the behind the scenes of athletes and different sports, and, the shows that's been airing now, with the Netflix of this world and whatnot. But like to be able to be at the Olympic Village and watching, speed skaters and all different athletes, to see their routine and see how they embrace the challenge in front of them was pretty cool to have those conversations. So to be at the Olympics and obviously being fortunate enough to win was an amazing experience, something I'll never forget. It's definitely up there on my list, but the Stanley Cup is just, the ultimate dream for me. It's been, as I said, it was my dream growing up as a kid. I always wanted to make it to the NHL. Obviously, you're playing pond hockey or pickup hockey as a kid, and you're always pretending to be Game 7 in the Stanley Cup Finals, and who's going to win that that goal, the goal to win it. So obviously to be a part of it and being on a team that was able to bring it back to Boston was pretty special and something I'll never forget.
Yeah, that's I think one thing that's really cool that we don't do in the NFL is, right, it's tradition when you win the Stanley Cup, you get to keep it for like a day or something, right? What'd you do with your Stanley Cup?
I actually I brought it back home. I first brought it to the hospital to visit a few kids, and then to my high school with a bunch, the hockey team that I played for back then in high school. So I brought all these kids and the chance for them to see the cup and take pictures and whatnot.
That's awesome.
And because that was in the summertime, so we try to keep it a surprise, but how do we make it work? So anyways, they couldn't believe when they saw the cup showing up, and then I just did a party with my family and close friends, and spend all night with it. And
I'm about to say you had to do some.
The cup there's a keeper that's there. He's staying with you. He parties with you all night. And
I need that job. I need to let me know when I retire. Let me know how I apply for that job.
Yeah,
I'm a great time.
Man. That's like he was like I think he was coming from like Europe. He was like in Finland with Tuukka Rask and a bunch of Germany with Dennis Seidenberg, and then he came over to Canada for us as a bunch of us in Quebec and in Ontario. So
you think that guy's flying private, or is he going commercial with the cup?
Commercial and the cup.
I was hoping that was going to be a private gig too.
It's a lot of travel.
That would have been incredible.
I think before we get into, I got some 2 hard-hitting questions that I really got to ask. But before we get into that, I think, one thing I have really enjoyed, going back to Boston is the pressure. There's a lot of pressure on us, on our sports teams, which I love. Which I think it matters because people care. They care about, and we talked about how passionate people are about our sports teams, and they're not happy when we lose. They expect us to win every year. And I love that because I think as a player, that should be your expectations, right? And when you're playing, and I know there's a lot of amazing sports cities, but there's some cities that, if the team's doing good, people go and they're excited. And if they're not doing good, it's kind of like, all right, whatever. And so I think playing in Boston is such a unique experience with that pressure. And I know that's something you've obviously probably felt in your career. I feel it, and we always talk about, ignore the outside noise, all that stuff, right, as athletes, but you hear it, you're human, you hear it. And I love it. I like I said, I think what makes this place special. And I think, we got a lot of guys here who, especially on the Patriots that are newer, younger guys that haven't been a part of some of that success, and maybe don't understand what that pressure is and why it's important, which I think it is. And like I said, I know you probably have felt that in your career. So just talk a little bit about that. And, when you got young guys, there, because I know you've probably dealt with the young guys that come in and they maybe had personal success, which is great. But at the end of the day, these are team sports and the team has to have success. Just talk a little bit. I'd be interested to hear just, you were such a great leader, obviously, for so long. Just talk a little bit about that and how you try to implement that into guys. And I don't know, how do you get that message across? Like, hey, we're here for something bigger than just scoring goals and making money sometimes.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think it's that's what makes professional sports so great. Is the fact that lights are on you and your team obviously and you want to do well, but then like how do you handle that? And to me, like Boston is a perfect place for it because there's challenges every year because the Pats were winning or the Red Sox. Yeah. There's always a team that was winning. It's like, okay, like now it's on us to find a way to carry, to carry on and do the same thing. And I think for me, like it was, that's how I always looked at it. I embraced that challenge. I thought it was always great. I felt like pressure was always something that like challenged me, but like in a good way.
Yeah.
Like,
I think you need that pressure, you need to feel that
for sure. And I think like that's, and I know it's the same thing for you guys. Like, I think we have such high expectations for ourselves and individually as a team. And so the outside noise and the outside pressure shouldn't really weigh on you because like you're already there. Like, you didn't play a good game. You didn't play a good shift. Like as a team, like you're honest enough to know all these things. So like when like you have to face the media and whatnot or face the fans, you already know, like it's okay. And I think that passion is important to have on a team in the city. And to me, like it's dealing with that with the young guys is more trying to explain to them, like, first of all, like, you have those expectations for yourself. Like that pressure is great. And it's like, okay, like now, maybe you have some, some thoughts where you're like, I don't know if I feel good today or I'm not having a good phase, or it's like, okay, accept it, like recognize that, but then like move on, like what are you able to do next? And then be in the moment. That's something I've always said to the guys, like, don't look too far ahead. Don't look back. Like, think, if it's not going your way, or if if there's a good stretch, a long stretch coming up, like, don't look at that. Like, look at tonight's game or tomorrow's game. And then like, and I feel like that's how you're able to kind of like navigate through like a long schedule like we do. Like we have as hockey players, and stay in the moment and releasing, like being able to like use that pressure and use those expectations to better yourself and to make sure that you're going to be even more ready to compete and be at your best. And I think like recognizing that, but also being able to communicate with each and every individual on your team that, hey, like I see you, like you're valued. I want you to be you. Don't try to do too much. We use that phrase from you guys, that do your job. Like, hey, like like you're a great fourth line or a 13th fourth, but you're the best in the league. Like we love you. Like we love having you. You're important to us. And just as important as our first line, it doesn't matter if you're playing 2 or 3 minutes. Those are going to be the best that you're going to give us. And, I think it's to make guys understand that, like we're excited to have you and we value your craft and whatever that is. And let's just try to handle the expectations and be excited to be you and just play and be able to create something special as a team.
Yeah,
right?
I think
it's a great culture. I think we've talked about, and for me, it was kind of cool because I came in 2009. There were some great leaders on the Patriots. Obviously, Tom was kind of the one that maintained that test of time. But when I left and then came back, a lot of the young guys I came in with were now these leaders. And here you talking about, we value you and the players lead the culture. And so obviously having a guy who played 19 years in that locker room, who was able to kind of repeat that message and see young guys come and guys leave and new guys come. And it's kind of amazing the culture that's been built in not just the Patriots, the Bruins, but the Red Sox and the Celtics as well, because even though there's change, there's a little bit of a consistency throughout those years, which allows them to have so much success. And getting back to our point we talked about earlier is just how I think, obviously we've all chosen to live here. I mean, Patrice, you're retired and I'm kind of on that way too. David, not yet, but this will be our home. And coming from other places, I don't think the Bostonians realize how lucky they have it with the sports teams that we have, because I come from Cleveland, and when LeBron won the NBA Finals, the Cavs won the NBA Finals. I mean, they shut down the city because they hadn't won a championship in like 60 years. The kids, I meet people, they're like, yeah, I'm 24 and I've seen 20 different championships. I'm like, you don't even understand how good you have it. But it's amazing to hear you talk about the culture and leadership there with the Bruins, because it's very similar to what I experienced playing for the Patriots.
No, that's great. I think it's like one of those things where like I think it's important to reach out and especially as leaders, it's to make people understand and listen. Like we got to make sure our leadership group reaches out. Mm-hmm. So like try to grab a few guys. Like we all have 3 or 4 guys that like those are my guys that I'm gonna reach out to and make sure they're taken care of, make sure they're feeling good, they're ready to go. And that's kind of like the way we did it. It was more to within the leadership group, like try to split up and have your guys that like you relied on and they could rely on you as well, because we're as I said, we're all in this together. And I was always impressed with the way, obviously, the Pats have done it. And obviously, I didn't have an inside, eye at all, but at least from looking from the outside, seeing, the culture and the way that you guys did it and the approach that you had. And it seemed like, everyone was involved. There was always someone that was stepping up. It's an injury. The next guy in it looked like seamless,
Mm-hmm.
like you guys always made it look like he's ready to go. He knows what he's doing. That's because, that culture was instilled that in the guys. The guys felt valued, even though they weren't playing as much. And whenever they were called upon, they were ready. And I think that's what we try to do with the Bruins. We're like, hey, like it's a long season. There's going to be some injuries. Everyone needs to feel like they belong and they want to be a part of it, because, you're only as good as your weakest link, right? So at the end of the day, like you need to make sure those guys are happy to be here.
Yeah, that's something I try to tell guys, because how I got, I was undrafted. So, I had to make the team. And I knew I had a pretty good camp and I thought maybe I'd be a practice squad. And, then we had some injuries and, I ended up starting 11 games my rookie year, got benched on Monday night, still hate Monday Night Football because of it. And then obviously won the job the next year. But, I had to be ready for that opportunity. And I try to instill that in young guys. Like, you never know, like this year with, Sinners Now, like, I was going to start and, and then all of a sudden now I'm out having surgery. Like, you got the golden ticket opportunity now. Like, I'm not coming back. You have this great opportunity and take it. Like, you got to take it. And, if that means the guy comes in and plays better than me and that I don't have a job next year or whatever it may be, like, that's part of this business. And that's how I got my start. And, I love when guys do take advantage of that opportunity, kind of like you were talking about, like whatever it may be. Maybe it's just, hey, get in on one special teams play, go out there and make a great play. Now you've got role on every special teams, and you see these guys just flourish and create roles for themselves by taking advantage of that opportunity. And I try to tell guys, you never know when it's going to come, and you better be ready, because that's the one thing I know when I got into the league is like, whatever happens, I want to have no regrets, and if I play 3 months on practice squad and get cut and go home and do something, and at least I can look back and say I gave it my all, and I did everything I could, and that allows you to sleep at night. And I still think now, even at my age, like, whatever happens, like, I'm going to try to do whatever I can. And if something doesn't, like, I know I gave it my all. And I think that as an athlete, that's all you can, hope to do one day, is when, you and Brian are on the other side of it. Like, you lay your head down at night, look yourself in the mirror, like, all right, I gave it my all. I have no regrets. So, I think that's such a huge thing. So my 2 hard-hitting questions for you, I got to talk about fighting, because I love it. I still love it when we go to games and they fight. And it's such a, you see some fights in football. We see them more in practice. Sometimes, maybe the offense isn't having a great day, and, maybe I'll try to fight somebody just to try to, get the offense moving a little bit, bring some juice. And, but you can't do that in the game because the penalties and different things. I remember in 22 or 21, maybe 22, we were playing the Bills late in the year, and Mac had gotten hit a couple times. I didn't like it. And, he went to slide and got hit again. And so I ran down there, and I didn't touch the guy. I didn't push him. But I got in his face, got a 15-yard penalty, because I just didn't like it, and I was sick of it, and I thought the refs weren't doing a bad job. So I got a penalty. It moved us out of the red zone, and I talked to Bill after it, and I was like, I know I messed up. I'm sorry, but I didn't hit him. I didn't try to do anything. I was just, and luckily, thank God, we scored a touchdown that drive, because if not, he would have been really pissed more than he was, because you don't want to hurt the team, and you get thrown out if you do throw a punch or whatever. Luckily, I didn't do that. I was just 15-yard penalty. But, I think in hockey, that's such an interesting thing. And guys go out there and fight, and then it's just kind of over, and they move on and they go sit in the penalty box. And, it's such a interesting dynamic in y'all's sport that no other sport has. So just touch a little bit on that mentality and just about it and what it brings. And sometimes are you kind of like, this is dumb, or are you just kind of like, let's go, because there's some pushing fights in practice where you're like, all right, you guys are just being, assholes. But like, talk a little bit about that and kind of what it means to the sport and just its importance.
Yeah, no, I think it's very unique. Obviously, we're in this position where like we're able to fill the score right away, right? It's like right away. If there is a difference, if there's like something that's going on, like you need to take care of that. And so, as I said, like sometimes it's going to be like some repercussion. Like sometimes it's going to carry on from game to game. Like you're going to play, there's rivalries, whether it's in the playoffs or during the season. Like you're playing different team. I think like the one thing I'll say is, for me, I'm probably not the right guy to ask about fighting because I didn't really fight that much in my career. But that being said, I think it's always been important to the sport because it takes away some of the cheap shot that you can see sometimes. And I think it's one of those things where, like, if you're able to take care of it right now and then, like it's like, now let's settle the score. You're mad at me, I'm pissed at you. Let's drop the gloves and take care of it. I think you see a lot of that. Earlier in my career, you saw a lot of it. There's the fourth line was, very tough. There's a lot of big guys that were, there to police, the other team, making sure that your star players weren't, taken advantage of. I think now it went away a little bit. Those guys are good skaters as well. They're good players. We were lucky to have like Sean Thornton for the longest time, where he was tough as nail, and he was also a really good player. He was skating well. It was, and that's probably why we were so hard to play against, because they could score, but they could also, take care of you and deal with the toughest guy on each team. So I think to me, like fighting, I know like a lot of people have their differences, but that being said, I think it does take away some of the bad, the cheap shots there, and the bad hits that you don't want to see in a game, knowing that you might have to answer for it. And I think that's the purpose of fighting, really, in hockey.
Kind of policing yourselves.
Yeah, and I think I was there. I was at the game yesterday, with my son, and against the Panthers. There's now a rivalry against them because of the last few playoff runs, and the Panthers got the better hand both times. So, they're a physical team, and yesterday there's a lot of that. There was some big hits, but there's also a couple fights because guys have had enough, and let's I'm sick of you and dropping the gloves. Let's take care of it, and you take a 5-minute penalty, but that it doesn't really hurt the team.
Yeah,
right?
that's kind of
because both guys are going to the penalty box, right? It's not like in football where one team gets penalized, they get and so it's like it is in a weird way. And look, I play quarterback, so I let David do the fighting, those other guys, but it is in a way like it's part of the culture of hockey, and it's like, all right, listen, we're both going to go to the penalty box, we're going to have it out, and then we're going to move on. And it is kind of. I remember taking my son to one of his first hockey games that got in a fight, and he loved. I mean, it's amazing. Like the crowd loves it. It's like they like that more than when a goal scored almost.
No, he gets the crowd going for sure. And I was going to say that yesterday we were at the game, and it was just as loud as if the Bruins scored, right?
Yeah.
After the couple fights that were there. So it does make a difference. And I think hurting your team is when you take a bad penalty, you try to retaliate on a bad hit, and you don't fight. You know what I mean? Like you're going to try to elbow the guy or do something stupid, hit him from behind. You know what I mean? Like that's when you're going to hurt your team. But then if you go and ask him, and you oblige, then it's like, all right, like let's settle the score. And then
so funny. I love those mic'd ups where they're just like sitting there to face off. Like, you want to go? You want to go? Are we doing this? Are we doing this? All right, let's go. And I think that's so great. So the coach really, like we just said, it doesn't hurt the team. So he's not really like you're not coming out of the penalty box being like, you SOB, you shouldn't have done that,
No, there's been a few times in my career that it happened, but usually the coaches are fine with it. For the most part, they like it. Yeah. Sometimes it's like to get momentum back. Like some of those guys are just trying to create something. There's no life in the building.
Whatever.
We're flat as a team, and they're going to go and try to find a partner, and that is trying to create energy. So obviously that's something that make sure you give a guy a tap on the pads and be like, hey, like, good job, like, thanks for doing that. So the coaches feel the same way. He's trying to do something for the team, like he's trying to help, like he's trying to find momentum.
Yeah, we always talked about never, like, if you're going to get in a fight in practice, never throw a punch, because in football you throw a punch and hit someone's helmet. Now you got a broke hand, you're out a month, having to have surgery probably. So that's like the one thing, there's not a lot of punches thrown in a lot of our fights because, you're hitting a freaking helmet, which is dumb. So, and then my last question, which, maybe isn't right, but I got to know, and I want to ask, how many fake teeth you got?
I got two.
Only two. That's good for 19 years. I feel like that's pretty good. That's pretty good. Yeah. I think you guys are so dumb. And I mean that in like an endearing way, because I'm watching you guys, we're hitting a lot, but we're fully protected. And obviously there's really bad injuries and everything, but you guys are getting freaking sticks to the face, the pucks to the face, eating glass on the boards. And I'm like, they're wearing less than a bicycle helmet out there. And they think, we're tough and all that. And I'm like, no, like I'm not ever, I've had my face maybe in a fight if a helmet came off, hit one time, nothing really ever to my face. And, you guys are getting teeth broken out, lacerations, all that stuff, and it's so funny to me, guys being like, oh yeah, even, guys I know that played not even professional hockey, high school hockey and maybe a little in college, I got 4 fake teeth. And I'm like, oh, you guys are ridiculous, I love it. I think it's great,
Yeah,
but
it is true though. Like, I agree with you. You know, we should be wearing a full face if you really think about it. But it's just, I don't know. It's just,
well, isn't it a thing?
They played with no helmet back then.
Isn't it a thing with the visor? Like it's like a right to get to earn the visor or something?
Yeah, it's grandfathered. So if you now everyone's wearing it.
Oh,
but like
God, come on! We got to get that back. Like you got to earn your right to wear your visor.
I know. Yeah. Yeah, that's true. I did that for 2 practice. So my first training camp, they gave me a helmet with no visor, and I was too shy and embarrassed to ask for a visor, but I really wanted to put one on. So I went on for the first 2 practices, and we had like actually an inter squad game, and I had no visor for that game, and that's exactly what happened. Like I got hit, and my face ate the glass so hard, and I cut myself up here. And then after that, I was in front of the net, you know, on the power play, and someone like riffled one super hard and super high, and went maybe a few inches from my face. And I was like, all right, I got to put a visor on. I got to man up and ask and deal with the consequences. The guys are giving me a hard time.
Yeah.
Well, Patrice, we appreciate you taking the time today, man. It's been awesome, you know, getting to know you. We've done a couple speaking things together, and then, you know, obviously, you know, through some of the guys, the Corey Griffin Foundation, and you know, you kind of talked about what you did with the Cup and being in the community and things like that. And I know you're super involved in the community up here, you know, and that's kind of how we've got to know each other. So, you know, really appreciate you taking the time. Appreciate all you do for the community. And appreciate you coming on today.
Yeah, thanks, Patrice. It was awesome to have you.
Thank you. I had a great time. Thank you so much, guys.
All right.
Appreciate it.